There's a war inside every so-called nice guy. Not a war between good and evil, but a war between the man he's pretending to be and the man he was meant to become. It's a quiet war, fought not with fists, but with silence. With every unspoken truth, every swallowed no, every smile worn like armor. He calls it kindness, but life calls it something else: suppression. You weren't born agreeable. You were taught to silence yourself to survive. Taught that saying yes would make people love you. Taught that staying quiet would keep you safe. And so you played the role. You softened your voice. You shrunk your desires. And slowly, you disappeared. But here's a truth most men never confront. Being agreeable doesn't make you respected. It makes you invisible. The mask you wear, the one labeled good guy, costs more than you know. It costs your instinct, your will, your fire. And the world? It doesn't reward those who play it safe. It rewards those who dare to show up fully. The man who buries his truth for approval becomes a slave, not a hero. Because the world doesn't need another man who fits in. It needs a man who dares to stand out. A man willing to be misunderstood. Willing to walk away from comfort, willing to be disliked, if it means being real. Nice guys aren't nice because they care. They're nice because they're afraid. Afraid of conflict, afraid of rejection, afraid of being alone with themselves. So they lower their voice to be digestible, water themselves down to be accepted. And in the process, they forget who they are. Predators don't fear politeness. They exploit it. They smell weakness in the man who can't say no. They walk over the man who won't draw a line. They manipulate the man who's afraid to be disliked. The truth: if you're always trying to keep the peace, you'll invite a war you're not ready for. Being liked is not the same as being respected. And if you've lived your whole life trying to be liked, then ask yourself, at what cost? Do you avoid truth to keep others comfortable? Do you agree when your heart says no? Do you smile when your soul is screaming? They told you to be good, to be obedient, to wait your turn, to stay in line. And maybe you listened. But what they didn't tell you is this: you can be good and still betray yourself. You can follow every rule and still feel empty. True strength doesn't come from how well you play along. It comes from how boldly you live your truth, from how deeply you know yourself, from how fiercely you protect your values, even when it costs you approval, especially when it costs you approval. We've confused kindness with passivity, politeness with virtue, compliance with love. But love that requires you to shrink isn't love. It's control. It's conditional. It's a leash disguised as affection. You weren't made to fit in. You were made to create, to speak, to lead. But the crowd taught you to stay small. They praise the man who doesn't rock the boat, but they never follow him. They forget him. If you want to matter, you'll have to burn. Burn the version of you that only lives for applause. Burn the habits of self-erasure. Burn the fear of being alone. Because real transformation requires fire. And the nice guy, he avoids it. And so, he stays lukewarm. You don't need permission to be who you are. You don't need validation to speak. You don't need applause to walk your path. If you keep waiting for someone to give you the green light, you'll wait until your soul turns to dust. And they won't mourn you. Because the world forgets the men who forget themselves. Ever wonder why they say they want a nice guy, but fall for the man who couldn't care less about being nice? It's not cruelty they're drawn to, it's certainty. Presence, the kind of man who owns the ground he walks on, who doesn't beg to be chosen, because he already chose himself. You were told comfort was the goal, but comfort is the enemy of becoming. You were told approval meant success, but approval is a cage. You were told love would save you, but only self-respect can do that. And it begins the moment you stop chasing validation and start becoming undeniable. There's a version of you that's still buried under years of guilt, fear, and pretending. But he's not dead. He's waiting. Waiting for the moment you stop performing. Waiting for the moment you say, no more. That version of you, the real you, doesn't want to be liked. He wants to be free. So stop asking, what do they want from me? Start asking, what do I demand from this life? That's when you stop being a shadow. That's when you stop being forgotten. That's when you become the kind of man they can't look away from. If this stirred something in you, don't ignore it. Share this with a brother who needs to remember who he is. Like, subscribe, support the mission. Because this isn't about content. This is about men waking up. And it starts with one choice: burn the mask and rise.